Hola, ¿cómo están? Hello, how are you all? And I'm sorry, but I only speak two languages, so I'm gonna have to keep it at that. All right, so thank you so much for coming this year again to AsyncAPI Conference 2022. It's so exciting to see a lot of familiar faces here. As you know, we are excited about helping build community here. We're excited about open source, but we're also excited about EDA, event-driven architecture. So today with me, we're going to talk about how our docs have changed a lot over the past year. We're going to talk about specifically a lot of the contributions that came from our GSoD contract slash internship writers. They did a lot of hard work, both onboarding and, well, more about this in the next few slides. So yes, today's presentation is called How AsyncAPI Docs Got a Facelift. As you already know, this is thanks to our GSoD 2022 contributions. And for those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Alejandra Quetzalli, and I work with doing a lot of open source work currently with AsyncAPI initiative, and I do dev docs for sure, but besides being a documentation engineer, I also find myself accidentally sometimes doing a little bit of developer relations like today. So here we are, and here you are with me. So welcome, welcome. If you're kind of new to the initiative, just in case you didn't know, if you're wondering where to find us in different mediums, different platforms and channels, well, of course, there's our website, AsyncAPI.com. And of course, today, me, as I'm speaking about docs, I am most enthusiastic about AsyncAPI.com/docs personally, but we're going to go see those, all of those awesome stuff in just a little bit. We also have our GitHub, AsyncAPI, same handle. Our YouTube, same handle, AsyncAPI. The only one in which we were not so lucky was Twitter, because apparently AsyncAPI was taken, so we had to go with AsyncAPI spec. For those of you that haven't followed us on Twitter yet, now you know why we don't just have AsyncAPI. And then in LinkedIn, AsyncAPI, got that one. And don't forget about Slack. If you haven't joined us in Slack yet, you should be in our Slack, mostly because that's essentially our primary form of communication, aside from, of course, public, pull requests, issues, discussions, and things like that on GitHub. So yes, just go to asyncapi.com and then just super easy /Slack invite, and you'll be able to join our channel, and we'll be excited to talk more with you. All right, so today we are here to talk about essentially four main things. We're going to share with you our GSoD interview and selection process, how we ran it this year on behalf of the initiative. We'll also talk to you about the new things that are happening, that have happened since the internship started. Our information architecture has completely changed, if you haven't noticed. And we now have finally the ability to integrate UML diagrams, amazing, great engineering diagrams, into our documentation. And we really were missing more visual elements of learning in our documentation. So I'm very excited about the work on this one. And a shout out as well to the person who helped add this dependency and set it all up perfectly in our website, because it was magic. But he didn't just update the the package JSON file. He actually had to go in and make a couple of changes to our website. So big shout out to him for his work. So thanks to him, we now have diagrams. And then at the end, we will also discuss what is left to do for GSoD, which GSoD actually will be done not until the end of November. So as you can see, there's still a few weeks ahead of work, and I'll show you it all is going to look like at the end, so that you can better appreciate all the hard work and effort that came from our GSoD contributors. All right, so if you're wondering, hey, I wondered how the and the selection process worked, at least this year, at AsyncAPI for GSoD. What was going on? Well, I'll have you know, we had well over 200 applicants. It was insane. I was like, what is happening? Like every 5 seconds, like somebody new was like sending me an responding to our request, and I just couldn't believe it that so many people had seen yes this tweet. I sent this tweet. I tweeted it one day, went back to work or whatever it was that I was doing for the day, and then next thing I know, 24 hours later, when I woke up the next day, I see that we have, oh my goodness, all these retweets and well over 160 retweets. We had over 300 likes. And apparently, some folks from within the Nigerian tech community started tweeting it. They saw it somehow. I guess they were in my network. And next thing you know, I uh, literally I had people from all kinds of different countries in Africa. A lot of people from Nigeria. I'm not kidding. I felt like I had talked to basically to half of Nigeria. Yes, I'm exaggerating. So I wrote joke. Yes, this is a joke. Fact, I did though, however, interview well over 100 people. I spent like 2 weeks just like interview after interview after interview, just back to back to back. I just dedicated myself to meeting a lot of potential new community members because I was excited to see the huge thirst and hunger for learning how to become an open source documentation engineer, a technical writer, as some people call it. I consider us more documentation engineers and just technical writers because we write, but sometimes we still have to understand and write code ourselves. So anyway, all candidates were asked the same 3 questions, and I structured the interviews this way very carefully and on purpose because I wanted to give everyone an equal background chance, from every background, the same chance. And what I mean by that is I wanted people who had both work experience or not work experience to still be able to apply to this with us because we really love mentorship and mentoring people here at AsyncAPI, which is one of the main reasons why I'm still here happily working at the initiative, just because of how much mentorship really matters to a lot of the people that are main contributors here, core contributors. And so I wanted to be able to have that same spirit of mentorship very easily seen and available via, only asking 3 questions. Which, as you can see, these questions really allow anyone to be able to contribute to the interview. And it's not about whether you're more technically savvy or you're more senior. For example, first question, how do you want to grow as a technical writer? I would hope that no matter how senior you are or how amazing an architect you might be, that you are always aware that we always have to grow. There's always something we need to grow in, something we need to learn, whether not just as a personal growth as people, but obviously always in our technical growth. I hope that we never think that we know everything, right? So I wanted to see how aware people, these candidates, were of their areas of growth, because that's very important when you think about in a candidate. The second question is, how would you like to give back to open source if you're selected? And here it is, especially because this is an open source initiative, I really wanted to make sure that the candidates selected were people that genuinely had the maturity and the ownership of understanding that whatever they may contribute to open source projects is not about them. It's about how your work can help the community around you. And I wanted to make sure that our candidates eventually selected understood that, because otherwise it's not going to work, right? So, third question, what project do you prefer to join? Because essentially for GSoD, we really wanted to finally start growing out our new content buckets of tutorials, concepts, and tools. And so I wanted to know kind of like where people stood, because I wanted to place candidates in an area that they would be genuinely excited to work in. I don't want any candidate to feel, oh man, I got the boring task. Oh, I drew the short straw, as some people say, and I think the US. I don't know if that's a worldwide thing or not, but anyway, I didn't want anyone to feel like, oh, I wonder if I'll get good luck or bad luck in assignments. No, I wanted people to have a choice in the selection of their assignments because that's how people can be happy at their work, right? So I would ask them, do you want to grow tutorials and concepts, content buckets, or do you want to help grow our tools content bucket? And depending on how they responded was eventually how they were placed, or at least the 6 folks that were selected. So in the end, I'm super excited that because of the diversity and huge amounts, and I mean huge amounts of diverse candidates that applied, we ended up very easily being able to select 6 quality, awesome candidates. And so we ended up with Thuli, who's an amazing mother from Cape Town, Florence, a student from Kenya, Karuna, student from India, Nelson, oh my goodness, another awesome person from Nigeria, and then Anisat. So those 2 folks, both folks from Nigeria. Anisat is also a mother, and funnily enough, she's currently right now and will be at the time of the conference in the United States because she won this place in a master's program in the US. So we're very proud of Anisat. And well, we're proud of all of them, of course, don't get me wrong. Anyway, moving on. And amazing Pratik from India. Pratik and Karuna are just absolutely hilarious. I love them both. And we love them all. They're all just so amazing. And I really love that they've really done their best to learn and start contributing to the open source community. So I think we're all very lucky to have their contributions. And so, yes, that tweet did perform very well. As you can see, we had over 45,000 impressions. It was unexpected. Over 2,400 engagements. And I mean, I guess that's why we had over 200 applications, right? If we over 2,500 people interacted with it. All right, so let's move on and actually talk about what changed in our information architecture. So as you can see via this mind map, this is the new information architecture that we now have thanks to our work this year so far. Now we clearly have content buckets defined with different purposes, right? We have concepts, tutorials, guides, reference, and tools. What do we have in reference? Well, our API spec, of course. Tools, well, we would put all of our tools there. Eventually it won't just be, Modelina or, the generator tool is what we're currently working on for GSoD. We want to add the CLI. There's, we want to add all of them, but you get the idea. We're very excited about this because now there's a clear understanding of where to find information as a user depending on what your question is, what your area in your question is. For example, concepts is going to be used for defining and explaining visually with diagrams, the new diagrams that we now have, each API spec term. So we will have a page to define producer, a page for server, channel, application, etc. So one for each one. And there's actually a couple of them that have been live even since before the conference started. So you may have seen them, some of them live already, but we'll talk more about them in a moment. And also tutorials. We already had a tutorials, content before, but we didn't really have that content bucket specifically outlined in our website for our documentation. So now we do have that. And we ended up actually majorly rethinking and restructuring the tutorial section this year at GSoD. And I'm so excited to share with you what those changes were in just a few more slides. Moving on to guides. So a guide is different from a tutorial. A tutorial takes you from point A to point B. For example, I have my computer in front of me and I have no code written in front of me. But at the end of this tutorial, I want you to walk me through step by step how to build my first React application, whatever, something like that. Versus a guide doesn't actually guide you step by step into building or doing something at the end. A guide is instead more of a visual, bigger picture kind of document. A guide teaches you the capabilities and the features of your technology. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I do find that often that does trip writers up, and not just writers, product managers in the world of enterprise absolutely get confused constantly about the difference, and you see it in their documentation. Whoopsies. Definitely engineers get confused about the difference. Writers get confused. This is a problem all around. So let's talk about this. Okay, Alejandra, can you please help me understand really the difference between a tutorial and a guide? Well, you know what? I'm like to always explain this by talking about grilled cheese sandwiches. Yes, I honestly believe that a grilled cheese sandwich will be what can best help you understand. All right, so let's start with the tutorial. I did say that a tutorial was step-by-step instructions for going from point A to point B. For example, if you say, Alejandra, please write me a tutorial for how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. I need a tutorial. Here you go. So I'm going to write out, every single step. I'm going to tell you, take out all of the ingredients. And, if this was in a PowerPoint slide, I would actually list out every single ingredient, but, trying to keep it succinct to the point here, right? Then the next step would be grab, maybe a frying pan, turn on the stove. Oh, butter the bread slices. All right, put the cheese slices in between each bread, and then you place that over the frying pan until the cheese melts, and then you take it out, and at the end of this tutorial, I have a completed, amazing, delicious grilled cheese sandwich. So, if you were to come to me instead and say, but Alejandra, how about a guide? Well, a guide? Yes. What would be a guide for grilled cheese sandwiches? What would the difference be? Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So, a guide for grilled cheese sandwiches would instead explain at a high level. So, again, big picture here. At a high level, the capabilities and the features of a grilled cheese sandwich. So, what is a capability or what is a feature of a grilled cheese sandwich? Okay, well, is a grilled cheese sandwich capable of being cooked with different tools? Is there only one tool that can be used to make a grilled cheese sandwich? Well, no, of course not. Maybe you don't want to use the frying pan. Maybe you have one of those fancy sandwich, you know what I'm talking about, those little fancy sandwich contraption thingies. Clearly, I don't own one myself, or I would know the name for it. Sandwich maker? I don't know. So, okay, we agree. There are different tools that you can use to make a grilled cheese sandwich. So, that's a capability, I guess, of the grilled cheese sandwich. What are some features? Well, can I add more than one kind of cheese to my grilled cheese? Oh, yes, you can. Hey, you want maybe a triple cheese sandwich? There you are. Hey, you know what? Can I have ham? Yes, we can absolutely add ham to your grilled cheese sandwich. Maybe you're wondering though, okay, Alejandra, I don't know if you have this feature or not, but this one really matters to me. I need to know, will you be adding a feature to make a grilled cheese sandwich with bacon? Oh, my friend, I have good news for you today. That feature is available. Yes, it is. You can absolutely put bacon in your grilled cheese sandwich. All right, boom. So we have a guide now for grilled cheese sandwiches, and we have tutorial for making a grilled cheese sandwich. So now I think, okay, a little bit of maybe a lot of fun, but you know what? I think that now it's definitely visually a lot more understandable, the difference between what the purpose of a tutorial is, what the user needs from a tutorial versus what the user needs from a guide. And you're welcome for making this fun. Moving on. Docs homepage before and after. So I'm excited to share with you that now our current Docs homepage looks completely different from the way that this looked like, even just beginning of this year, I believe, or last year. As you can see, we didn't even have a homepage explaining to you as a user the different learning paths that you might choose to take depending on your goal. As you can see, we had a getting started section that seemed to be separate from the tutorial section, and then there was specification and something called community, which had tooling inside of community. It didn't really make a lot of sense versus now, we have awesome, amazing 5 clear content buckets. And this would only be possible, again, thanks to our GSoD interns. As you can probably remember, potentially, hopefully, the documentation menu changed as well. So what you're looking at, at the top is what we currently have versus what was there before. As you may or may not have noticed, potentially, though, this is a little bit harder to notice unless you're really testing things on our website constantly, like some of us are. The interaction also changed. So Docs is unique in that not only can you hover over it to get the sub navigation, but you can also click through directly to the homepage of the Docs by clicking on the word Docs, the Docs item menu, which is different from what we have in tools, for example, or community. So we have a unique interaction functionality there, which of course was necessary because we actually have a homepage for the documentation page, AsyncAPI.com/docs. Now, here's the exciting changes coming up for the tutorial section. As you may or may not remember, now we have an overview, the details, the purpose of each content bucket, and then we have what makes more sense, our quick start, which in this case is our getting started tutorial. And currently, we had, at least at the time of my recording this, the Streetlights tutorial, Streetlights interactive tutorial as well. Well, at some point in our community work, some of us, Lucas, had an idea, and he says, "Oh my goodness, you know what? What if instead we finally kind of divide this into 4 main ideas, 4 main things that people can do with AsyncAPI, and the 4 common things that people ask us, how do I do this?" So, of course, if you're active in AsyncAPI with AsyncAPI already, you might already know that those 4 top things were, here they are: creating an AsyncAPI document, validating that document, generating code, and of course, validating the code kind of messages/events. Now, I had, and a lot of the folks in the community, honestly, beforehand, already for a while, kind of noticed that these changes needed to come. So we were definitely very excited when Lucas proposed dividing it under these 4 new ideas, and more on that to come. We also now have, of course, diagrams, which we did not have before. And so now you kind of see what we, have in the Markdown. It's basically Markdown generated diagrams. And then you see what it looks like when it's live on the website. It looks awesome. And so now all of our concept pages, at least to start, have at least 1 diagram each, although most of them have 2. Now, I know some of you are wondering, hey, what's left for GSoD 2022? Well, right now, we are still, making those changes to the Streetlights tutorial. And we have all of our lovely interns, with a lot of pull requests out for new concept pages. There's, they're working on feedback. And we have a lot of folks that are also working on tutorials. And so at the end, what we're going to end up with, the goal being at the end of GSoD, which should be end of November, perhaps early December at the most, we're going to have not just the overview and getting started, which we already have, but now instead, following that, we'll have tutorial for create a AsyncAPI document, validate a AsyncAPI document, generate code, and validate code messages and events. And of course, we have so many more things we want to add. Eventually, I want to add another subsection in tutorials for protocols, because we know that we want tutorials of AsyncAPI with Kafka and WebSocket, et cetera, et cetera. But at least for GSoD 2022 this year, now we will have these clear actions that a user can learn. And the tutorials will be much more tailored. So we're very excited about this. And thank you, Lucas, of course, for the amazing ideas. Now, the goal for concepts should be that at the end, we want to end with not just server and producer, which are currently live as of, this recording, But we also want to end up with ideally 90% of the spec terms, if not all. So at our minimum goal is to have server, producer, consumer, protocol, channels, application, and message. But our stretch goal is to also have bindings. So that would be all the spec terms defined and illustrated. Big thank you to all of the folks who have been also reviewing and giving amazing long detailed feedback to all of our work for GSoD, because without those reviews and without that feedback, we wouldn't be able to eventually move this to get merged and live to help our community. So, as you can see, there's been a lot of work done. You may remember we have our 6 lovely GSoD interns. They had to learn literally everything from scratch. All of these folks had never worked with AsyncAPI, and they had never worked with event-driven architecture. So very, very much so, all of this was new to them. So I'm personally very proud of how they undertook the huge learning of onboarding and having to process so much information. They also onboarded right before we made a lot of these major information architecture changes, both with the help from design contributors like Missy Turco or developer contributors like Maciek, and I believe Akshat might have also made some changes. And not that it was GSoD specific, but he, for example, helped add the feedback card, which is just what we needed for our documentation. So yes, besides GSoD, we had contributors from design, we have contributors from docs. Yours truly. Not just me, of course. We have a lot of people who contributed docs, but anyway, you know what I mean. If you know, you know. And of course, a lot of contributors from development as well. We are very excited that we were, first of all, selected for GSoD 2022. We weren't sure because, of course, it's hard competition. More than 100, if not more than 200 people applied to GSoD at Google itself, you know, us initiatives in open source. So definitely thanks to Google for selecting us, and the grant money that we are now going to be able to give to our GSoD interns at the end of the GSoD internship. And I'm very excited that we're able to give them something for their contribution. So yes, I hope that now you folks are a little bit even more excited to contribute to docs. Next year, my dream, my goal is to apply to GSoD 2023. And now I want to pitch them, instead of a information architecture flip, I want to pitch to them that we should just finally enhance ourselves and build our AsyncAPI learning platform. And so that's what I want to pitch for next year. So if you are already excited about what we were able to do with our lovely contributors for AsyncAPI community during the GSoD program, and you're excited to see what could happen next year, well, now you kind of know what we're thinking about. We're thinking about a learning platform. So if you want to volunteer or help mentor, like, now it's the time to reach out to me. Don't wait till the last minute. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you